All right, you got any beignet
good.
takes
It's
from
been
being
a
in New
good
Orleans,
week.
Tom?
We've been shooting fish in a barrel down here with a lot of different guests who've been able to wander through. So it's been really good. Yeah, definitely. We've talked to a lot of people with different Patriots perspectives and perspectives on May and Vrabel and free agency. So it's been very good, I think.
Is there a lack of buzz? We've been hearing little whispers of, there's a lack of Super Bowl buzz, or it's not quite the same, or it's not like past Super Bowls. You've been to a bunch of them. What does it feel like?
I think that it's the evolution of media, and I think it's the evolution of events. I think our attention is so diverted in so many different directions. Certainly as a country right now, I think there's, certainly seismic changes taking place within the country to capture people's attentions, and the Super Bowl becomes, to an extent, an afterthought to that. And because they're not teams that are necessarily, obviously Philly is, but Kansas City, you've kind of been there, done that. This is not an historic Super Bowl in terms of what the game will be or the matchup will be. It's historic for the Chiefs in terms of history. So, yeah, I think it's a little buzz-free, but I also think, as you guys have been down here and covered this, media contingents are smaller. It's a smaller event at ground zero than it used to be, even if it might be as big or bigger than it's been previously around the country.
Interesting. Yeah, that surprises me. Tom,
isn't that it? Like, I just thought about it, Teddy. Like, you don't need to send your whole friggin' TV station down here to cover the Super Bowl and get people. People just don't. You can get stuff that you need to hear about your particular team by the time it would have been fed back, written about, or whatever else sent to you. You've already got it. You already know it, and the access is different. So anyway.
You talk to so many insiders, people that just been covering football, the big heavyweights that cover the league for a long time. What is the consensus or the feeling of what the Patriots did in hiring Mike Vrabel? Is it as positive as it seems to be here?
It is. What I find interesting is talk to Jim Wyatt, who's been a beat reporter for the Tennessee Titans for 27 years, and he covered Mike while he was there. And one of his takes that we had on the Patriots Talk podcast was interesting. He's a good guest. You guys should have him on. He's fun to talk to. But I said, well, why did they lose 18 out of 24 games? What happened? And he explained some of it was injuries. And then he also said some of it was fatigue, physical fatigue, mental fatigue, because Mike is a hard-driving taskmaster, and he's going to want things done a certain way. And I think it'll be interesting when the Patriots do start to make their decisions on who they're hiring, how much they spend or how much emphasis they place on this guy will work his ass off. Football is important to him, as Bill used to say. How vital will that be? How vital will it be to hire guys who don't act as if they already know it all? So that, I think, is going to be interesting to watch, too, because it was interesting to hear a little bit more ascribed to why they might have failed in Tennessee beyond just, they were playing Josh Dobbs at quarterback.
So how about the quarterback himself, Tommy? Are you getting the same kind of positive buzz on Drake Maye from the people that you've spoken to from Pro Football Talk and beyond, Florio and such?
Yes, and talking to Diana Rossini, actually, just a little while ago from The Athletic, she does a great job covering the league. She mentioned that by far the Patriots were seen as the most attractive location, and that was because of cap space, because of an owner who was experienced and urgent, but mostly it was because of Drake Maye. Certainly Chicago would have seemed attractive, but is their ownership and is their front office setup, it's clean? No, it's not. They have GMs and team presidents there. This was the cleanest, most coveted position, and Drake Maye probably had 60 or 70% to do with it. Because if you didn't have Maye, but you had the cap space and the ownership, I don't know how much more attractive this place would have been to a Vrabel even, for instance.
NBC Sports Boston's Tom E. Curran joining us here on WEEI Afternoons. Tom, I'm sure you saw the press release the Patriots put out yesterday with the totality of Mike Vrabel's coaching staff. And two things kind of piqued my interest. One was that Duron Mayo is still the strength and conditioning coach, brother of Gerard Mayo. And then the second was in the quote attributed to Mike Vrabel, the very first line saying, his goal in filling out the staff was to identify loyal, trustworthy coaches.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
Same thing jumped out to me.
Yeah, well,
Same thing jumped out to me in terms of the quote.
Yeah.
And then secondarily, for Duran, who's extremely close with his brother, as one might suspect, and, who I understand wasn't really that happy with the way the firing was executed, from what I understand. To basically guys haven't even toweled off after the game, and it's already out there before people have left the facility that Gerard had been fired. But if he stays on, obviously there's a sense that he would be loyal to the organization, and they must have been able to pass, to move past it. Like I've always liked the Mayos, both Gerard and Duran, in all my interactions with them, and I think there's a level of emotional maturity that you have to be able to get past things. Brian Belichick exhibited it last year in staying with the team, and now he probably has an opportunity to go work with his dad. But is it the best place for you and your family? Can you stand on principle and still work with someone? So that I did find interesting, and I thought the loyalty comment was extremely interesting because you're recruiting players from colleges who have lived in the NIL era, who have lived in the portal era, where you can say, it's not going so good for me, I'm out of here. How can you reestablish loyalty for players who have become, or at least started to understand more, that they are independent contractors, all brought together for a 17-game period?
It is fascinating. I'm just curious to get your overall thought on the coaching staff. I think there's 27 coaches. Dan reported that there's 4 holdovers, 9 coaches from the Tennessee staff, in which Mike was part of years ago, and then 14 others. There's a couple narratives that are starting to take shape, Tom, that I push back and disagree with. One is that, especially with Josh McDaniels being hired, that Robert Kraft is involved in this coaching hiring process. That's one narrative that I'm not buying it. I just feel like this is really more of Mike Vrabel's team than people are realizing. And then the other one is that the staff members, the Doug Marones or the Josh McDaniels, they're stubborn or hard-headed, and that there could be maybe issues behind the scenes because maybe they're all not maybe pulling in the same directions. And I don't feel that's the case either. Just your overall thoughts on the whole profile of the coaching staff, how it's made up, how we got to it. What is your thoughts on that?
I'm excited as somebody has to observe the team and have an opinion on the quality of play that there are so many assistant position coaches. Just think about 2 years ago. Bill was the head coach. He was working with the offensive line because Matt Patricia was the offensive coordinator, and why am I forgetting the name? Adrian Clem had to leave because he was ill. So you suddenly had an already skeleton crew as a coaching staff with many people not in their areas of expertise, now spread so thin that the head coach is basically the assistant offensive line coach or the offensive line coach. So to me, you now have the ability to, on a really crappy roster, when you draft guys like Antonio Maffi, who's already come and gone, or City So and he fails to develop, you have an assistant offensive line coach to say, will you go coach these guys? Because I'm trying to get the guys who can play ready for Sunday. Go work with City So and figure out his technique or his film watching or whatever is holding him back. So I think that the abundance of coaches is a great thing, especially for a crappy team. And the notion that these guys are not going to work well together, it's certainly worth positing because, hey, these guys have a lot of experience. If me, Ted, Andy, and Fitzy started something, we're all 50 years or older, we're all going to bring our own life experiences. Or we might just say, you know what? This is going to be fun. Let's all do it together and try and get along, which is what everybody friggin' does. So my guess is they'll be fine.
So, Tommy, this week we got news from Myles Garrett. I know he's been on Super Bowl Media Row, maybe trying to walk it back or qualifying, but Garrett may want out of Cleveland. Cooper Kupp is long gone from L.A. You in on either of those guys for the Pats if possible?
Sure. I think that, I would entertain the notion of sending the 4th overall pick for Myles Garrett. Might be a year early to do that. Can it drastically change your defense? I think it could. And if the offense is going to improve because you have a second-year quarterback excuse me, in May, then yeah, are you going to be able to load up a little bit at wide receiver? Could you be a team that starts to sniff the level of improvement to 8, 9, or 10 wins this year? Maybe, but not without a Myles Garrett. But then that presents, okay, we don't have a 10, we don't have a fourth overall pick, and we're in a situation where we need players, and we need them under easy contracts to swallow. So I could see why the logic isn't there, but they need good players. As for Cooper Kupp, I would 1,000,000% send a fourth-round pick for him and pick up his contract and swallow it in. I think trades are the way to go for the Patriots because as we keep looking, and I keep saying to you guys every week, free agency does not end up being what we think it's going to be because there's more money for teams to spend to retain their good players.
Tom, we were talking with Ted earlier, and he said he doesn't like to watch games with you because he's really focused on the games.
Nope.
How do you watch the Super Bowl? Are you gonna focus, or you like a good party with some wings?
That's really funny.
I told him how I like to watch games, and I said that you and Holly like to watch games in the green room, and I'm the a-hole in the cubicle.
He does it differently.
Yeah.
He's in a cubicle by himself, but he's got a running narrative to the TV.
That's right.
Oh, really?
I don't say a flipping thing.
Right.
Oh, my God, yeah. He is flipping out.
I do.
It works out perfectly. I don't say if I like to watch. I cannot stand people who get excited about the commercials. I cannot stand people who have to declare something after the second play of the game. Oh, the refs are in the bag. Shut up. So no, I don't like running commentary as much.
So
but
it works
from
well.
A former linebacker who knows what he's talking about, anytime I have sat next to Ted, I enjoy it.
So it's cliche, but who you got Sunday? Who's going to win? How's it going to play out?
Give me the Eagles running it right through the sternum of the Kansas City Chiefs. How's that? Buffalo would be here if Buffalo would have been here had they continued to do the same thing. The Eagles are going to run it right through their clavicle.
That's why you're popular, Tommy, because you're playing the hits.